Infernape! I'm him. Welcome back to another video. This video has been long overdue. Basically, when I posted my review a couple months ago on Sceptile vs Greninja, a lot of you guys told me to cover the Electivire vs Infernape fight. And we're finally here covering Pokemon's greatest get-back story, greatest revenge plot in all of anime. And y'all, I'm so excited to cover this fight because this is one of my all-time favorite storylines in Pokemon, even till this day. And it was so good to the point where I still remembered a lot of the events that occurred, and I watched it when I was a kid. That's how you know this story was top tier, man. Shit was peak Pokemon. But before we get into the official fight breakdown, I'm going to be covering two components. The first is going to be Infernape's backstory and how he was just a little Chimchar being abused by his original trainer, Paul. Then I'm going to talk about the rivalry between Paul and Ash and how it became so important to the Diamond and Pearl series. I mean, this rival is equivalent to the Warriors versus the Cavs. But first, make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you guys could be notified right away when I post the video. Also, if you guys like this Pokemon review, comment down below what other fights in the Pokemon series you guys want me to cover next. Let's officially get into Infernape's backstory. Before Infernape joined with Ash, he was originally with Paul. Paul first recruited Chimchar because he saw his potential when he was up against a horde of Zangooses trying to jump my boy. He saw Chimchar's special ability Blaze, and of course Paul got horny after seeing Blaze, so he just had to catch Chimchar right then and there, and he had to have him on his team. Bro, my man was salivating after he saw Chimchar use Blaze. But the problem faced when Chimchar joined Paul's team. Because Paul saw Chimchar's potential with Blaze, Paul became impatient and became an abuser to Chimchar because he wanted him to be able to control Blaze right away. It was so bad to the point he kept using his Pokemon to attack Chimchar and abusing him left and right. I mean, there were some instances where I think he used his own Pokemon to jump Chimchar as well. Like, come on, man, he already had PTSD from the Zangooses jumping him. You're gonna bring that again? And another crazy part is that Paul always used Chimchar in all of these unfair matchups. Like, you're telling me you would send out a Chimchar, fire-type Pokemon by the way, against a fucking Cranidos, a rock-type Pokemon? Come on, man. Paul, you're supposed to be smart. And then what set me off was that he sent out Chimchar against Cynthia's Garchomp.
Alright, dude. What the flip?
Literally one of the strongest mons in the whole Pokemon verse, owned by one of the strongest trainers in Cynthia, mommy. And lastly, he sent out a Chimchar to go up against a fucking Metagross and a goddamn Zangoose again. Oh my gosh, we already know he has history with Zangooses. Motherfucker was traumatized during this fight. I mean, I would too, man. I mean, to think Paul, being known as one of the strongest trainers in the show, one of the smartest you could say, battle-wise, made some terrible decisions with Chimchar. Like, how could you be mad if Chimchar not using Blaze when you're not fully using him right, when you're just throwing him in every situation? Fucking bullshit, man. Fuck. Honestly, Paul is your average OnlyFans model. Delusional. Thankfully, during the tournament, Paul finally decided to release Chimchar. Then Ash decided to swoop him up to take Chimchar in and be the father who stepped up. Damn, Ash is just like Russell Wilson, man. If you know, you know. Finally, Chimchar is on Ash's team, where of course, with a lot of training and love, Chimchar fully evolved into this sexy monkey. Wait, that sounded so bad. Now let's talk about the history of Ash and Paul's rivalry and why it's the best rivalry we have in the series. Paul and Ash met all the way back in episode 3 of the Diamond and Pearl series, and let me say that Paul in the first episode introduced was already on timing. Like, my man challenged Ash and used his Starly to beat Ash's Starly. Then after the fight, releases that Starly that he won with in front of his face. Paul is such a menace, bro. If I was Ash, I would have crashed out right then and there. I don't give a fuck who was around, because that was disrespectful as fuck, y'all? I do want to talk about why this rivalry is so goated. That is because Paul and Ash are two sides of the same coin, meaning they're very similar. They both have the same goal on trying to become the strongest Pokemon trainer, but what differentiates them is their approach to how they treat their Pokemon. As Ash prioritized bonding with his Pokemon and having adventures with them, caring for them, having fun with them, whereas Paul cared only about strength, disregarding any Pokemon who didn't meet his standards. And honestly, it's crazy to think because Ash's way is the correct way on how you should treat your Pokemon, but Paul's way is more effective, as throughout the Diamond and Pearl series, Paul was always ahead of Ash. You know what's funny? If we would have compared Paul to something in real life, he is equivalent to a professional Pokemon VGC player. Like both, they just try to get the perfect EV Pokemon on their team and will discard any amount of Pokemon needed in order to get that perfect EV one. And that is what makes this rivalry so great between Ash and Paul, because they're both reaching for that same goal, but both of them are taking different paths on getting to that goal. And the series did a fantastic job on following both of these characters and following the storyline throughout the series. And I love how we follow Ash just trying to catch up to Paul throughout basically the entire Diamond and Pearl show up until the Sinnoh League tournament. I mean, my boy Paul basically beat Ash in every single fight before the tournament. I don't remember the exact amount of fights they had before the tournament, but I'm pretty sure it was like around 5. And from my memory, I think Paul beat him all 5 times. Comment down below to fact check. So when the Sinnoh League tournament came around, Ash was not messing around. He was ready. He was fully trained all of his Pokemons to the max level, especially Infernape. And as a viewer, I was also hyped for Ash because I wanted him to beat Paul so bad. And this is a great transition to the Sinnoh League tournament. Cut that out. Finally, after all of that story that was built up throughout the DMP series, we finally get the head-to-head match, Paul versus Ash. But before we get into the main event of Infernape versus Electivire, I want to go over some of the previous matchups and give some shout-outs to some Pokemons on both teams because some of the fights were lit as fuck. Alright, I hate to do this, but first, I gotta give a massive shout-out to Paul's Pokemon, Drapion. Bro, this motherfucker was for show MVP on Paul's team. Like, Drapion knocked out 3 of Ash's Pokemon. Yeah, 3 of them. Half of his team. It was so funny. I remember when I first watched the series when I was a kid, I was like, who the fuck was this purple Pokemon? And after watching the fight, I was like, yeah, I have to get this guy on my team. They did Drapion justice during this fight, man. He was cold as fuck. His Toxic Spike and Cross Poison combo? Man, that combo was so deadly. So while I gave a shout out to Drapion, I also wanted to do the opposite. I guess it is a shout out, but not a shout out. I don't know. I was very disappointed in this specific Pokemon, and that was Torterra. Yo, I was so bummed that Torterra lost his fight in the fucking Sinnoh League tournament. He was so cold as a Turtwig and Grottle that I thought when he finally evolved into Torterra, he would have been so cold. And the reason why I was so disappointed is because Torterra was actually my first choice starter when I played Diamond. Yes, it wasn't Chimchar, it was Turtwig. And up to this point, Torterra had 0 wins. Yes, 0. He hasn't won anything. And because he hadn't won, I thought they were gonna set up a nice comeback story for Torterra. He would finally get his first dub in the biggest stage. But no, he didn't. Motherfucker got bodied. Man, I was more disappointed than I was to the Dallas Mavericks in this year's finals. We did it! Man, Torterra's out here looking like the Detroit Pistons. And I know this video is about him, but I wanted to give a quick little shout out to Infernape and Ash because what they did with this move was so tough. Okay, so Toxic Spikes that was laid by Drapion was giving Ash problems their whole fight. So what Ash did was sent in Infernape against Paul's Ninjask, and he had Infernape use Dig. And while Infernape was on the ground, Ash's Infernape uses Flare Blitz to burn the Toxic Spikes. Bro, I'm telling you, Ash has some high IQ plays. It's honestly crazy to think that this is the same Ash that lost to a wannabe Paul and his level 5 Snivy with his level 100 Pikachu. Make it make sense. But the true MVP, JK, more like the most underrated Pokemon in the fight, was Gliscor. Because this motherfucker defeated Drapion. Honestly, Gliscor defeating Drapion was the turning point in this fight. Quick little side note though, Frostlass cry? Not like that, not like that. After a few knockouts from Electivire, the final match is finally here. Ash's Infernape versus Paul's Electivire. And it is so fitting having these two be the final fight with so much history they have with each other. I mean, Electivire has been there since the beginning. He is Paul's right-hand Pokemon. Was also the Mon that was the head of all the abusive trainings. Obviously, Infernape has some beef with this yellow bitch. Wait, you talking about me? Now, let's get to the official fight. So the fight starts off with both Mons fisting each other. Wait, pause. Electivire using Thunder Punch and Infernape using Mach Punch, and we see this sick clash between the two. Every scene involving these two just hits so much different just knowing the backstory. That is just what you call good story writing. We also see Team Rocket here, and honestly, you know Paul was a fucked up trainer when Team Rocket is on the side of Infernape. The Team Rocket that's basically a gang that steals little kids' Pokemons on the daily. But Infernape gets the first punch while using Dig. Infernape landed a nasty uppercut on Electivire, but we still see Drapion's Toxic Spike still in play as Infernape is still poisoned. Hopefully it doesn't cause any issue later on in the fight. And now we see these two just straight up boxing. Man, each punch has so much weight behind it. Then we see Ash using Mach Punch, but Electivire catches Infernape's hand, then uses Thunder. Man, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how the hell Infernape survived this. This shit was brutal as fuck. Infernape took a direct hit from Thunder, a stab move by an electric Pokemon, directly to the face. That's insane. And sadly, after that attack, Infernape is down, passed out, and is starting to look like Ash and Infernape might take this L. But wait! Infernape starts to get up, but is still feeling the effects after that nasty ass move. Barely being able to be conscious, but in front of him, Infernape sees Electivire's bitch ass taunting him. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Then finally, Infernape's Blaze activates! And my lord, Infernape is so tough. This angle was so beautiful, just having the scene starting off with Ash, then it pans out to Infernape's Blaze being activated. Oh, I think I just came. We see Ash start off with Flamethrower, this time looking extra flamey. My lord, that Flamethrower just fucking bulldozes Electivire. Bro, Infernape is him! Then right after hits Electivire with the Mach Punch. Finally, Infernape uses Flare Blitz while Electivire uses Thunder Punch, and we know that Infernape, through all the struggles, all the beatdowns, all the abuse, finally channeled everything he had and just went straight through Electivire. Bro, this was so tough. Infernape blitzed Electivire so fast, the attack was delayed a couple seconds. And with that, Infernape takes the dub over Paul and Electivire. Wait, they psyched us out. Looks like Electivire survived that hit. The fuck? Oh, and we get a freaking standoff between Electivire and Infernape to see who falls first. No shocker, Electivire falls first because he's a big back yellow bitch. All right, now it's official. Come on. Finally, after the whole season of training for this moment, Ash and Infernape finally defeated Paul. Oh man, this fight. Y'all, I know I glazed Greninja vs Sceptile in the last video, and it's valid because that fight is still one of my favorites when it comes to the actual fight scenes, the animation, and the OST, but the Infernape vs Electivire fight was my favorite story-wise in the whole series. And you know it was so well written that I remembered most of this plotline when I watched it as a kid. It stuck with me on how shitty of a trainer Paul was and how Infernape got his get back against his former owner. I mean, the fight, the series, this version of Ash was peak Pokemon. Honestly, you know what I just thought that's kind of crazy to me? How the fuck did Pokemon get away with telling this kind of story about having an abusive owner slash partner? If you think about it, Paul and Chimchar's storyline was quite dark and deals with a lot of mature subjects. I mean, it was fine at the time because as a kid, obviously I didn't know shit. I was just a little dumbass and everything just went over my head. But rewatching it as an adult, I was like, holy shit. But what I am curious about is which fight do you guys prefer? Greninja versus Sceptile or Infernape versus Electivire? One last thing I want to say is fuck Tobias, man. Fuck this guy. He robbed Ash of a Sinnoh League championship. How the fuck does this guy have a fucking Darkrai and a Latios? He probably had other legendaries too that we don't even know about. Can you guys comment down below? Fuck Tobias. Thank you.